Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about making connections in reading. And what does that mean when we say making connections? Well, it is pretty much what it sounds like. It's when you're reading something or watching something, and in your mind, you connect it to something else. So the events in the text, you in your own mind can connect to something else. And when we say making connections, there's three kind of main facets of it. So one is text to text. In other words, you're connecting the text that you're reading to another text. So that would be you're reading one book and it makes you think of this one scene makes you think of another book, or you draw a connection between your book and a play maybe, or I would even count movies in that category. So any other kind of media that you've read or watched. Just so you know, movies follow a script, so that would still technically be following a text. So you can have text to text connections. The second one is text to person or personal event. And so what that means is whatever you're reading, you draw a connection between what you're reading and something that may have happened to you in your life, or maybe your parents' life or your friend's life, but that's like a more interpersonal connection, right? And then the last one is text to event or world event. So this would be you're drawing a comparison between what you're reading and an actual world event that happened. And maybe what you're reading happens to be totally fiction, like fantasy, and is not actually talking about a real world event, but in your mind, you're like, this is completely fabricated, but it kind of reminds me of this major world event that happened. I don't know, you could say um, a major war that happened. I don't know. But I wanted to draw some connections with Zachary Beaver as a kind of an example, right? When I'm reading it, what connections am I drawing? And I just wanted to add that I think it's really important that we learn to actively do this. I think sometimes it's natural. Most of these lessons that we talk about, you do these things innately, meaning you don't even think about it. You're probably already doing it. But it's always good to be aware of what you're doing because it makes you not only a stronger reader, but I think it also makes it more enjoyable to read, right? If you think to draw a connection between what you're reading and something else that you already know, it kind of makes it a little bit more exciting. It makes it more interesting because you can connect it to, let's say, a personal event or something like that. So let's start with text to text. So if I want to draw a connection between when Zachary Beaver comes to town and another text, personally, what I thought of is it reminds me of Because of Winn-Dixie a little bit. So last year we read that in one of our book club groups, Because of Winn-Dixie, and the connection I would draw is that one, they're both set in the South, and two, the style of writing is very much um, authentically Southern, I would say. Uh, the accents are explained. The characters are very outwardly characterized as Southern, and they have that kind of thing in common. And um, the the events that are happening, right, are very Southern style writing, I would say, and they're both set in the South. So I would draw the connection between this and Because of Winn-Dixie for those reasons. Let's say another one. Let's say text to personal event. So um, I'm drawing the connection between when Zachary Beaver came to town and um, I don't know if this may not sound exactly like a personal event, but it's something that I see in my own personal life, and that is when they talk about the Dairy Maid, the ice cream place in this book, the Dairy Maid. I always think of the Dairy Palace here in Washington, and that's something that I used to always go to as a child. Sometimes I still go there, but I used to go a lot when I was a kid, and that's instantly a connection that I drew when I was reading this. I envision it even looking similar on the outside. I think the difference is in Zachary Beaver, it's like an actual store. They can go inside of it, whereas the Dairy Palace here in Washington, you can't go in. It's just you go up to the window. But I drew that connection, and that's something that is not exactly a personal event, but it's something from my personal life that I'm very familiar with. So that's a connection I drew, and so in some ways, Antler, the town in this book, kind of reminds me in a couple ways of Washington. They're both small southern towns, and the Dairy Maid slash Dairy Palace was one that I instantly thought of when I was reading. And then let's say for the final one, text to world event. And this one kind of gives us one. This book, it kind of gives us one. Do you know what it is? There's a major world event that is happening during this book that happened in reality. If you don't know what it is, or maybe you do, I'm thinking of the Vietnam War, right? So this is set in, I think, the early 70s, maybe the late 60s, probably the early 70s, though, because I think that's when U.S. soldiers were going to fight in Vietnam, mostly. But that is happening in this book. And so that's a connection that is easily drawn, right? Because we probably, well, we definitely don't remember the Vietnam War happening in our own lives because we're too young, but it's still an event that we learn about a lot. And to get even more specific, remember Cal's sister, Kate, has a prisoner of war bracelet, or she has actually multiple prisoner of war bracelets. And I remembered learning about that last year when we talked about the Vietnam War in history and how people would wear bracelets with a soldier's name on it. And that was a real event in our history, and it's written about briefly, it's mentioned in here. So those are three connections that I made when reading When Zachary Beaver Came to Town. That covers text to text, text to personal event, and text to world event. And yeah, so I'm going to write your follow-up on the assignment, but it'll involve you making your own connections between the book that you're reading. So I hope that you have fun with it, because I think it can be really interesting and honestly fun, right? It makes the book more personal to you. It makes it more, I don't know, you get engrossed in it more. That's what I find anyway, so. All right,